One of the things about this month we talked about a little bit last week was when the Prophet ﷺ was rewarded for his patience. And the Ummah of the Prophet ﷺ was rewarded for their patience because this was the end of the year of sorrow. Hazan, right? This was the year of sorrow, where the Prophet ﷺ and his companions, they had been exiled outside of the city of Mecca, the city limits, and they had to live in a ditch on the outskirts of town, and nobody was allowed to trade with them. So much so that they had to make stew from the leather of their sandals. And the religion of Islam is a religion of sacrifice. So if you try to take sacrifice out of Islam, you no longer have Islam, you have his Islam. This is Islam I want to practice. I want everything to just go smooth. But we know from our messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he sacrificed. The messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his life was reflected in the lives of the prophets before him. So his life was reflected in the life of Harun, alayhi salatu wasalam. Because in the Bible, it says that Harun was hated by his people, and then he was loved by his people. And this was the life of the messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When he started to preach his message, he was hated by his people. So much so that they would force their own kith and kin to live on the outskirts and not give them food and not trade with them. And this was a prolonged struggle that they went through. Sometimes someone hit us, and it go like a week or two. So if I get sick, and I'm sick longer than a week, I'm going to the doctor. So I'm like, wait a minute, man, it's supposed to be like a 3-day thing. I must be dying. You go to the doctor like, ain't nothing wrong with you, man. You should have came in here a week ago. You almost over it now. And this is a human being. We live in an instant society. So even if we have problems, even if we have struggles, we don't want them to be prolonged. But the messenger of Allah, he showed through his life, if you want Jannah, you got to work for it. If you want paradise, it's a struggle. If you want paradise, you're going to lose friends. People going to turn their back on you. They're going to be like, what's wrong with this guy? He always want to do right. And I want to do some wrong. You know, you go to the block, want to hang out with your friends, you first start practicing Islam, that stuff going to last about a day. They be like, here this dude come again. You be like, man, I got that good message. Me and this dude used to run the streets. They want to keep running the streets. They might not, like the Prophet ﷺ, people actually 13 assassination attempts. The Prophet ﷺ had 13 assassination attempts. Like it was more than, man, you always asking me to stop doing this and stop doing that. I just think we probably need some space. Instead it was, let's get rid of this guy. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he had an uncle, Abu Talib, the father of Talib. And Talib is a student. Abu Talib, he used to protect the messenger of Allah. So the lawyer's son said, you guys might not agree with what he's teaching, but if you do something to him, you're going to have a problem with all of us, the Hashemites. In this year, the year of sorrow, Abu Talib died. And this man, the head of the Hashemites, was now Abu Lahab. Abu Lahab was the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's favorite uncle before Islam. Abu Lahab was the Prophet's favorite uncle. But now, oh yeah, I ain't going to protect you. The Messenger of Allah, he went to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said, can you protect me? Abu Lahab, he went to Abu Jahl. Said, man, my uncle's asking for protection. I mean, my nephew, what should I do? Abu Jahl said, go ask him where Abdul Muttalib is. Because the Kuffar, they thought, once you die, that's it. You in the grave, that's it. The Muslims believe it's an afterlife. And the people of faith, they're going to enjoy the afterlife. They earned it. So he said, go ask him. I mean, Abdul Muttalib, he came before the message. Everybody loved him, but he wasn't Muslim. Go ask him where he is. Could you imagine somebody asking Muslims today, where's your uncle? Where's your grandfather who died? These Muslims, they're going to be like, oh, that dude is in the hellfire. They would tell you that about you. You'd be like, my grandmother died. What do you think? Some foolish Muslim going to be like, they are in hell. They don't have a chance. They don't have perfect belief and faith like me. So Abu Lahab, he said, where's Abdul Muttalib? Prophet said he's with his people. Abu Lahab, he liked that answer. He said he's with his people. He died. He went home. People come and ask me, they say, so my grandfather died, my uncle died, my brother died. I say, man, they went home, man. Ain't nothing out here for them. This world is ups and downs. You tell people your disbelieving relative went home, that person's going to have hope. Because only Allah knows our final destination. You come telling me that everybody in my family, because they was born in America, which is a Christian country, are in hell, and everybody in your family, because they was born someplace else, is in heaven, you might get socked. So the Messenger of Allah, he wasn't the Muslim of today. He said Abu Lahab is with his people. And so Abdul Muttalib, he's with his people. So at that time, Abu Lahab was leaning towards, he said, well, let me go talk to Abu Jahl one more time. I think we're going to make this work. You know how you got to bargain with somebody and they say, well, let me check with my wife. You be like, uh-oh. Let me check. As soon as they got to check with somebody, you know the deal ain't going through. Abu Lahab, he meets Abu Jahl, he says, hey man, he said Abdul Muttalib is with his people. Abu Jahl said, he thinks his people are in the hellfire. He was being nice. So when Abu Lahab heard this, he was incensed. He said, I ain't protecting this guy. And it was at this time, the Messenger of Allah never slept in the same bed 2 nights in a row. If you knew that about the Messenger of Allah, raise your hand right now. If you knew that the Messenger of Allah, pretty much his life was the life of a fugitive on the run. And if you ain't heard that, why? Because people want to soft up and pretty up their religion for you. And then you can't understand when you see people struggling. The people who struggling are the people of God. The people who don't have to struggle. Why they don't have to struggle? Because God ain't tripping on them people, man. Pharaoh never had a headache. Because he was an oppressor. So all of these Benjamin Netanyahu characters, you feel like they always getting over. They not getting over. They get enough rope to hang themselves. Whereas the Muslim, who you throw everything at the believer, helicopter gunships, attack hellfire missiles, 2,000-pound bombs, all bought by the U.S. taxpayer. And the believer understands all of that. And then we think they're losing and they're winning. So much so, the Benjamin Netanyahu had to accept the peace deal. This is Islam, brothers and sisters. This is Islam. Every time you look and you see people struggling, that's an indication those are the people of God. So we have to make our decision. We're going to sit at the sidelines. Why do you think the last administration lost? Because people went out into the streets. They couldn't go nowhere. They would go through a speech. Somebody would sneak up in there and say, free, free Palestine. This was hard work. So I don't want nobody to come tell me it ain't a real peace deal. You got to be optimistic. You got to know they're not going to be able to slaughter people forever. I don't want you to be like Donald Trump got something up his sleeve. I think a lot of people, they so mad that Donald Trump pulled it off that they can't believe, and we got to say, I might not agree with Trump's politics. I don't think that everybody should get rounded up and sent to another country if they wasn't born here. I don't believe in that. But when it comes to that Gaza thing, you got to give credit where credit is due. You need to be on the internet thanking Donald Trump administration, just like you was on the internet talking crazy about the Biden administration. Because he's an egomaniac. You got to feed into, you got to stroke that ego. He'll be like, oh yeah, they say I'm a peacemaker. If you don't do that, then when Netanyahu want to do something else, he's going to be just like the Democrats were. The tide is changing, brothers and sisters. My whole life, if you spoke out against Israel, you lost the election. This is the first time in the history of the globe that the people who stood with Israel lost the election because of that stance. They can say it was because of whatever else. 19 million people, 19 million less people voted for the Democrats this time than last time. You lost 20 million votes. That wasn't because of the economy. Everybody ain't out of work. People's like, I'm not voting for genocidal maniacs. You can't scare me into doing it. People say, oh yeah, Donald Trump. Donald Trump got 1 million more votes than last time. Which means if the Democrats would have got the same amount, they would have won again. They lost 20 million votes because they tied their ship to Netanyahu. And when Trump came in there, he said, this better be done because I don't want to see no more encampments on the colleges. I don't want to see the bridge getting shut down when people going to work. My administration, I don't want to see none of that. So y'all got till Sunday. Because I come in office on Monday. And this is because the Muslims in Gaza struggled. The Muslims in the West Bank struggled. Muslims and non-Muslims in Gaza and the West Bank. Muslims and non-Muslims in the United States. This is the only way we make change, brothers and sisters. You ain't going to change nothing by sitting on your hands, waiting for God to come do something for you. You got to get out there and make it happen. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wassalatu wassalam ala ashrafil anbiya'i wa mursalin Nabi Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Yaqulu Allahu ta'ala fil Qur'an al-Kareem inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. So the way Allah rewarded the messenger and the ummah was with the Isra. The Isra and the Miraj. So the Prophet ﷺ in one night. So Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah gave him 40 nights. And in that 40 nights, he journeyed to the top of Mount Sinai. And when he was there, he was given the 10 Commandments. Allah, for the Prophet, he gave him something shorter but greater. Instead of Arba'ina Laylan, he gave him Laylan, one night. And instead of going to the top of Mount Sinai, he went to paradise. And he passed the low tree where no living thing could pass. He passed that low tree. The angel Gabriel said, I can't, if I was to go with you, I will burn, combust in the flames. So the messenger of Allah, not only did he not combust in the flames, his clothes didn't combust in the flames. Because his clothes was attached to him. Meaning if you don't want to burn up, you need to attach yourself to the messenger of Allah. That's the only way you're going to do it. Because you know, these guys who don't know nothing about Islam, they don't know about the Prophet, they might have a chance. I didn't know about the message. You know, you got to say, to keep from burning, spontaneous combustion, I'm going to attach myself to the messenger of Allah. And then when he was coming back, he runs into Musa, alayhi salam. And Musa said, what about the prayer? First thing Musa asked the Prophet something about is the first thing Allah will ask everybody about on the day of judgment. What about your prayer? This was the last thing the Messenger of Allah said before he died. He said, As-salah, as-salah, and those who your right hand possess. This is how important prayer is. So Musa said, what about the prayer? The Prophet said, I was commanded to have my people pray 50 times in a day. Musa said, oh, no, that ain't going to work. Because I had a similar journey. It was 40 days instead of one. And when I came back, I tested my people with that. They couldn't do it. I said, go back. Ask the Messenger of Allah. Ask Allah to make it shorter. Prophet said something, he looked at Jibril. Jibril said, go on, do it. He comes back. Said, did he make it short? He said, there's 40 prayers in a day. That's too many. So he kept going back again and again, and it kept getting shorter and shorter. And finally, he said 5 prayers in a day. Musa alayhi salam said, man, they ain't never going to be able to do that. That's too many. Everybody like, yeah, man. 5 is a lot. You know that this prophecy was 100% authentic. You be like, oh man, I didn't make door, and it's Maghrib time. In the wintertime, you be at the house at 9 o'clock trying to do 4 prayers straight. You finish a prayer, you try to walk around the room. Messenger of Allah said, I can't go back. I'm too shy. I can't go back and ask it to be short. And then they heard a voice that said, these 5 prayers will be rewarded as 50 prayers a day. So the prayers you do, the reward for are 50. Which means you have time. If you was just praying 50 prayers a day, you wouldn't be able to do anything else. You wouldn't be able to stop a genocide. You wouldn't be able to even go to work. You wouldn't be able to raise your kids. You'd be praying all the time. But you get the reward for 50 by doing 5, which means the rest of the time, you need to do something constructive. You can't just say, well, I did my prayers. The prayer is important. But it's in between the prayers. What are we doing? We trying to leave the world better than we found it? Or we just, okay, the prayer is over. Now I can do as much sinning as I want. The smart person says, okay, when I'm not praying, I'm doing something constructive. I'm doing something that's going to benefit me in the next world. And then on top of that, I get the reward for 50 prayers a day. This is Islam, brothers and sisters. This is Islam. It's working. It's working. We got to say, look at what these people withstood in Gaza. Look at what they was able to withstand in Gaza. They hit them with everything, including the kitchen sink. Does that mean it's over? No, it's not over. It's not over until Palestine is free. But we gotta be like, okay, we made some progress. We made some progress. Does that mean we don't do nothing and Palestine be free on its own? No. We keep on that. We keep doing that work. We keep doing that work. Allahumma ihdina fi man hadayt, wa afina fi man afayt, wa tawallana fi man tawallayt, innaka tahdi wa la yuqda alayk. Allahumma ansur al-Islam wal izz al-Muslimin, wa thabit aqdam al-mujahideen fi kull makan, wa salatu wa salam ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wa mursaleen, Nabi Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Kima salat.